Representative Self.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to kind of I'm over here. Here we go.
There you are.
I want to kind of tie your China expertise with our conversation today. First of all, just to comment, you mentioned that Qatar is now in Pax Silica, and I represent a district in North Texas, and we are very concerned that Saudi money and Qatar money are funding the Islamization of Texas. So as you go about this, just take that point back. Now, in your remit, apparently you are responsible for reviving the defense industrial base, amongst other things, domestically. And you admit that AI includes critical minerals. So the first question is, how do we deter China if they process 92% of all critical minerals today, and they import 73% of their oil? And I'm going to be referring to tidal wave done by the Heritage folks, strategic exploitation and sustainment in the U.S.-China conflict, because my first question is critical minerals and oil, and then we'll move on.
And so, sorry, your question, Congressman, was how do we deter China to do what exactly?
Yeah, if they already process 92% of all critical minerals around the world, how fast can we pare down their 92% of processed minerals, regardless of where they're mined? Start with that one.
Thank you for the question. It's obviously this fundamental challenge that our country faces that we are racing to address. Our approach is multifold. We, on the one hand, are racing as fast as possible in order to bring that number down. You're entirely correct that China processes somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of the world's refining capacity. We want to bring that number down, and we're working to do that by focusing on brownfield projects in a multitude of different geographies. So while the Commerce Department, along with USTR, are focused on revitalizing projects, refining projects in the U.S., the State Department is supplementing those efforts by looking at and mapping out where the biggest and most promising refining capacity on a brownfield basis are located, and then identifying who the right constellation of partners are to deploy capital and bring those projects back online. There's refining capacity in Australia, there's refining capacity in India, in South Korea. We want to expand that, and we can do that on a much more compressed timeline than building refining capacity entirely from scratch. You also brought up the point about deterrence, which is really key. And while it's true that China controls 90% of the world's refining capacity, the US China is incredibly vulnerable for its energy imports. Right. And that is a point of leverage that the administration is keenly aware of. Obviously, the Chinese are also very much aware of that, and that is very much part of how we look at our economic deterrence posture.
Okay, and last year we held a hearing on the Bureau of Cyberspace and Digital Policy. Now under your jurisdiction in E, how is the positioning of this Bureau improved or enhanced the state's interest to advance our leadership abroad in all of these emerging technologies? Because it was pretty moribund. So tell us how you have improved their actions.
So it's very simple. Prior administrations had a very government-centric approach to technology, focusing on engaging international forums and the like, focusing on standards and norms. Our approach is based on the premise that our innovations come out of the private sector, not the government. And so a lot of our work is geared at engaging private companies who are actually the engines of where a lot of these innovations come from. We're doing this to secure the supply chain through offtake agreements. We're doing this to help better understand vulnerabilities in the map of the supply chain. It is through engaging with the private sector that we are actually addressing a lot of the challenges that our technology companies face.
Okay, and quickly, you've mentioned AI several times here. When you match AI with quantum computing, people seem to think that will be the keys to the kingdom. Can you address quantum computing with AI?
So let me just preface with saying that quantum computing is probably one of the most advanced fields of scientific research that, in all honesty, less than 100 people in the world truly understand. With that being said, I would agree that the combination of the power of quantum computers combined with the capabilities of artificial intelligence is incredibly potent and would really be unlike anything we've experienced. And so I agree with that statement.
I recommend you follow it closely, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.